Hey everyone, Kevin here. In this video, what I want to talk about is two smartphones that have been announced over the last few days. Now, both of these smartphones can be considered as budget smartphones because they're a lot cheaper than alternatives that offer similar specifications. So the two phones I'm going to be talking about are the Moto G 2015 and the OnePlus 2. Now, first talk about the Moto G. The Moto G came out in 2013. Motorola was owned by Google at the time, and Moto G was, I would think, the first phone really to carve out a niche as a budget phone. It really set up a category as its own in the industry. It was a mid-range phone, specs wise, but it was sold at a budget price, and no other company was doing this at the time. I snapped up the first Moto G just after launch for, I think it was £105. It was branded by Tesco, and I unblocked it through a code on eBay for about £1.50, so it was like £106, £107, and I got a phone that had the same specifications as phones that were like £200, £250. So it was an absolute bargain, and because it was owned by Google at the time, there was no bloatware, there was no crap on it. You know, like a lot of the Sony and Samsung phones at the time, they had all these crap applications that you couldn't even remove. It really slowed down the phone. But the Moto G didn't have that. It was really quick. Even though it only had 1GB of RAM, it was really quick, and it was a great little phone. I bought one for myself. I eventually gave it to my little brother, but I bought a few more phones. You know, I gave it to family. For example, my mum still uses the Moto G. Now, the Moto G 2015 is the third version. The last version upgraded the screen from 4.3 inches to 5 inches and upgraded a few things, like the camera went from 5 megapixels to 8 megapixels. And the latest version that's just been announced has a lot of great specifications, a lot of great features. It's just been announced in India. So I'll just quickly run through some of the specifications. It's still got the 5-inch screen. It's got a 720p resolution. It's got a quad-core Snapdragon 410 processor. Still got a micro SD slot. It's got the same 13 megapixel camera sensor that you'll find on the Google Nexus phone, the Nexus 6. So apparently that phone has dual tone flash and an f2.0 lens. Now, I've looked at Nexus 6 reviews in the past, and that camera was, it was pretty much lauded as a good camera, not top of the range, but a very, very good camera sensor. So I expect the camera on the Moto G 2015 to be very good. It's got a 5 megapixel camera on the front, and it has a 2470 milliamp battery. But it doesn't sound like a big battery, but because this is a 720p screen, I don't reckon it's going to burn up battery quite quickly. You know what, I reckon you'll still get a day or two out of it, at least a day of normal usage. One thing I was surprised to see, it's got IPX7 certification, so that means that you can put it in water for, up to 30 minutes for a couple of feet. It's not a feature I really care about, if I'm honest, but I guess it's quite handy to have if you drop your phone in the sink or in the toilet or something. Now, there's going to be two versions of the phone. This was something that surprised me. It's going to be a 1GB version with 8GB storage. Yeah, that's right. 1GB of RAM with 8GB of storage, and a 2GB of RAM version with 16GB of storage. So this looks really good. It is 4G as well, and it looks like a fantastic little phone. It's got a great little simple design. It's going to have no crap on it, none of these fitness apps that are just forced upon you and you can't uninstall, things like that. And traditionally, this phone was recommended retail price in the UK for about £150. I'm not sure what it's released as in North America, but in the UK it was always released at £150 recommended retail price, but it was never sold at that price. There was always bargains, on Hot UK deals. You could find deals like for 130, 110. As I said, I bought it for 105. So realistically, you should be able to get this for £130, which for a phone of these specifications, that's absolutely fantastic. This is a fantastic phone. It's got a great little camera on it. So I'm looking forward to this being released, and I'm not sure if I'd buy it for my main driver, but this is the kind of phone that I would probably buy for my parents or as a gift. It's that cheap. So if you look at the prices of phones in the UK anyway, the flagship phones always kind of come out about the same price. Now, obviously iPhones are a bit more expensive, but top of the range Android phones normally come out about, I would say the recommended retail price is about £600, but they're normally sold right off the bat for about £550. This quickly drops to about £500 quite soon after release, and then it drops to about £450 SIM free within a month or two, and within 4 or 5 months. It normally levels out about £400, and then it doesn't really drop below that until the next year's flagship comes out. So if you're looking at the price of the phones, the Moto G is effectively a third or a quarter of the price of a flagship phone. In the past, the big difference was the camera and the processor. So, the big difference would be if you're doing a lot of gaming, this might not be powerful enough for it. But I think we've reached a point where even most of the popular games, they can be handled by mid-range Android phones. There's no problem there. And I think the difference between the cameras it's really been narrowed. If you look here, this is a 13 megapixel camera that was on the Nexus 6, and the Nexus 6 was considered a flagship just 1 year ago. So there's really not a big jump. Now, when the Moto G was first out, that had a 5 megapixel camera on the front, and there was phones that had like 13 megapixel cameras. So now this is a 30 megapixel camera, and the Samsung phone, things like that, have got like 20 megapixel cameras. So I don't think there's that much of a difference now between the mid-range and the flagship phones. The thing that is still the same is the difference in price. So you're paying 3 times as much, at least 3 times as much, SIM free anyway, to buy a flagship phone, and you're not getting anywhere near 3 times as features, 3 times the specifications and things like that. So for me, it's kind of leaning me towards buying more of a mid-range phone at a budget price. That is the attraction of the Moto G, and it's also the attraction of the other phone I want to talk about in this video, which is the OnePlus 2. Now the OnePlus 2, if you consider the Moto G as a mid-range phone with a budget price, then I would consider the OnePlus 2 and the OnePlus 1 before it, I would consider these phones as premium flagship phones, but at mid-range prices. So you're paying about £250, £220 to £250 odds, and you're getting a phone with the same specifications at phones that are like £500 SIM free. Now, that I'm talking about in general. We've seen the price of the LG G4 dropping down in price, and you can now pick that up for about £370 SIM free. So it's not black and white. Some phones do drop in price more than others, but in general, I would say that the OnePlus 2 is being priced about half the price as the flagship models. So just quickly talk about the specifications. It has, let me just get the specifications page up here. Okay, so you can remember the OnePlus 1 from last year. This version has the Snapdragon 810 processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is insane. That is just crazy amount of RAM. It's got a Adreno 430 mobile graphics processor, and it comes with either 16 or 64 gigabytes of storage. It's got a 3300 milliamp battery, and the camera is 13 megapixels. So the camera is 13 megapixels, and it's got a 5.5 inch IPS display. Let's find the specifications here. So it's a 1080p display, and the Denso pixel is 401 pixels per inch. Now, I'm trying not to give you the wrong information here. So the camera has an f2.0 aperture, dual LED flash, and 13 megapixel sensor. Now, I've looked at a couple of the kind of reviews so far, and the camera, they say, is good, but it's not as good as the LG G4 or the Samsung S6. So the camera is something that the OnePlus 2 is perhaps, it's not, well, it is flagship, but it's not the best in the market. But I mean, the same could be said about the HTC One M9 and things like that. So this is going to be released, and the 16 gigabyte version apparently is going to be sold for $329, and the 64 gigabyte version is going to be sold for $389. Now, I don't believe these come with micro SD slots, so that's something to take into consideration. Now, as well as the camera, one of the other things that people are saying about this is that the Snapdragon 810 processor, some people say that it overheats, some people say that it drains battery a lot, and other people say that this, it's an exaggeration. But I've not read too many comparisons between the 810 processors against the lower versions Snapdragons, but that's something to bear in mind. But the fact is, I mean, the specifications of this phone are pretty insane when you consider, $389, which is about £250 in the UK. You're getting a 5.5 inch phone, 5.5 inch screen on an absolute beautiful screen. I mean, the LCD screen will be absolutely beautiful. You're going to get a really good 13 megapixel camera, 4 gigabytes of RAM, which, I mean, my phone's got 2 gigabyte of RAM, and I can't remember the last time I've ever had anything slow down. It's just, I guess this is where the phones are going. Most of the flagship phones this year have had 3 gigabytes of RAM, so this phone to have 4 gigabytes of RAM is really a step up. Again, it's really raising the bar, and as far as RAM goes, it's really raising the bar. So they've maybe fell behind a little bit with the camera, but as far as RAM goes, I mean, this thing should fly. I mean, it really should fly. You really shouldn't have any problems with the applications you're using just now. You shouldn't have any slowdown. Now, the one thing I would say about the OnePlus 2 is, those of you who remember it last year, I'll just kind of catch up with those of you who can't remember the release of the OnePlus 1. The OnePlus 1 came out last year. It was OnePlus are a company developed they're backed by another company called Oppo, which is another Chinese phone company, and they did this invite system. So this was to save them, designing too many phones and then, they're going to be left with all this stock. They thought, we'll do an invite system. We'll just let people invite other people. It handles demand, and supply and demand better. The problem was that they released this phone. It got lots of great reviews. I think it was like £229 at the time, and lots of people wanted the phone. But because of this invite system, they couldn't keep up with the demand, essentially. So what happened was, there's all these people getting invites, and they signed up to get an invite to buy the phone. And a lot of these people, they couldn't get the phone until 6 months later. Now, in the mobile world, in the smartphone world, 6 months is a long time, And as much as that was still a bargain at the time, there was a lot of other phones that had been released in the market, and a lot of the other flagship phones that were expensive had dropped in price. So I was kind of sorry to see that they've done this invite system again. Now, apparently, they're going to handle the invite system better this time. They're creating more of the phones in the first place so they can handle demand. I signed up for the invite system the other day. I don't know if I'm going to buy this phone yet. I might do, but I signed up and I was like number 250,000, so I don't expect me to get an email about buying it anytime soon. It could be months before I even get an opportunity to buy it. So that is something that's kind of annoying with this. I kind of hate that the whole invite system thing really annoys me, really, because if something's announced, I really want it to be in the shops a month later. I don't want to be 6 months down the line, that you can buy the phone, because by that point, there's going to be so many all these other phones that are going to be out. And phones like the Samsung S6 and the LG G4 will probably have dropped in price to the point where I could pick them up a little bit. Perhaps the same price, perhaps not. But certainly if I buy a refurbished phone or a second-hand phone, I could get things like the Samsung S6 for the same price as the OnePlus 2. I mean, I've used the OnePlus 1 a few times because some friends have it, and I was really impressed with it. So the OnePlus 2 looks like a great phone. They call it the 2016 flagship killer, which is perhaps an exaggeration, but for the price, the OnePlus 2 is an amazing phone. There's no doubt about it. The specifications for this phone are insane. The camera actually, even though some of the reviewers are saying the camera isn't as good as the S6, I mean, I've looked at some of the samples and I think it looks fantastic. So read into that what you will. So yeah, that's two phones that have just been announced. The Moto G 2015, that's the third version, and the second version of the OnePlus has just been announced. So I think both of these phones will hopefully be available within the next month or two. The Moto G will hopefully hit the shops in the UK within the next few months. I'm not sure, I've not got an exact date yet. And the OnePlus, it really comes down to supply and demand, when you'll get an invite. I'll leave some links below to the announcements, and I'll leave links to the OnePlus website, etc. And I recommend checking them out. I kind of feel that with smartphones, it's coming to the point, again, I spoke about this earlier, but it's come to the point where it's kind of insane to spend £600 on a SIM-free phone, because there is phones like this that you can get for half the price or a quarter of the price. And I think that's good. That's something that the mobile market has not had. There's, 4 years ago when I first went to South America, I bought a budget Android phone. it was about, let me see, how much was it? I think I paid about £130, and no word of a lie, it was unusable. Completely unusable. It had something like 128 megabytes RAM. It didn't even have a normal touchscreen. You know, the one that was kind of touch, is it capacitive you call it? And I couldn't even, like, I had to use a little stylus to push the buttons to type because it was so bad. It's just the worst phone I've ever owned, and it was unusable, and I eventually just gave it away because it was unusable. And for that same money now, I can get a phone with 2 GB RAM with, you know, a 30 megapixel camera, etc. It just shows you how long, you know, in 4 years, how quickly things have changed. And that's a good thing for consumers. So if you've got any questions about these, or if you just want to shoot a breeze about these phones and give me your opinion on them, please do leave a comment below. And if you've enjoyed the video, please do consider liking or subscribing. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time. Cheers.